Hello, so welcome to podcast number 6 of the Women Who Make It Happen Journeys to Success with Maria from Finst. We're going to do a couple of introductions about ourselves, understand how you got to where you are today, what challenges you, what drives you, also being a new mum and also working, balancing life and personal, and the challenges that come with that, the changes in your career from compliance to product to business analysis, as well as industry, so the investment side, the banking, the cryptocurrency and payments, and then more importantly, what thrives you to keep going and keep going up that ladder, how we can influence talent to come in and also push female talent to get into the industry at a more junior age. So I'll kick us off, a little bit about me. So I work for InterQuest. So we are a global search and consultancy business. So I lead on their European footprint here in Amsterdam, with a focus across risk, regulation and compliance.
Well, thank you very much for having me here, Anna.
Pleasure.
So I'm Maria Gallo. I work at Finst. I am a board member responsible for compliance. So that's a bit different than a normal chief compliance officer because I'm also a board member. Finst, we are a young crypto exchange. We just went live this January. We want to be different than what is already there. We focus on transparency, safety, and having a great product platform. So that's who we want to be and who we are already,
Yeah.
Of course. I'm happy to be here and hopefully I can answer your questions.
I'm sure you can. So if you take yourself back to the beginning of your career, just talk us through your changes, the different roles, different industries, and what got you to where you are today.
So for me, it's always funny to do this discussion because basically I studied political science. I come from a very different background. I'm like, people think you're a lawyer. No, I came from political science, international relations. I was like, I'm gonna go to the United Nations. And then I graduated during the economic crisis. And I didn't know what to do because it was very hard in 2011. So I learned about know your customer. A very big field today. Like I was one of the first in the industry with the firm I was working for that. So I started to know your customer. I thought it was super interesting. It was about fraud, about looking deeper into your customers. But for me, I wanted to expand that field, not only anti-money laundering, because I thought, I can be an anti-money laundering expert. But then I also learned about the field of compliance. And compliance is way broader because it also includes, in my opinion, governance, duty of care, treating clients fairly, all of these aspects that I also really like, which fit me. So I went into that. I went to DPA, and there I did like a traineeship in compliance with different firms. And then I started what I say my first real and long role at the Giro, where I was compliance officer. I was head of compliance, and then later I rolled into what you would call product and business development and business analyst.
So would you say that's more from the product side that you got into with compliance, or was it much? What's your specific area?
So I rolled in compliance from Know Your Customer. So I was really an analyst in Know Your Customer. Yeah. I was doing the client files and those kind of things, and I was like, this is really interesting. You go in depth, you investigate, you do fraud investigations. But for me, I felt like, I can be very specialist in this, or I can be general and be broader. And so when I went to Giro and in the traineeship, I just wanted to see broader compliance, like conflict of interest, all of those topics that are today in compliance. And I grew into that. And at the Giro, I was one of the first compliance officers and grew. And then we had a team and we got more and more subjects. MiFID 2 came in and it's just really big. Like we had topics like asset segregation, something I didn't know what it was. It was like, how do we segregate our own assets from the firm, from the assets of the clients to keep the assets of the client safe in case of bankruptcy? Well, something that happened now with FTX, right? So they put it all together. So those were topics I was dealing with, and I learned so much of, and I thought it was so interesting that I just kept on loving compliance, because compliance is huge. It has so much regulatory topics that you can look at and perspectives. But one thing that I didn't like that much of compliance is like the bigger your firm is, the more that compliance becomes a second line activity, right? When you're like in a startup, you have to be on the ground floor, you have to build up because, well, it's the first time you make the process, first time you make the procedure, all of these things. But once you're in a big firm, you have people that do that, right? They build it and you just have to check and monitor and see and give advice. I'm very much hands-on.
Yeah, I see that's where you see the compliance separating.
Yeah.
Because you see, and I think the analogy that I used the other day was you see really small fish in a big pond, and then you become a big fish in a small pond.
Yeah.
And it's how you go from having that broad team around you and having teams set to do specific areas in compliance that you can then delegate almost, rather than actually doing. So you understand the theory of it, but the application is a little bit weak. So then when you're put in a company like Finst, which is fairly small, and you have to build everything from the ground up and really understand how you do it yourself, because that delegative authority is just not there. You can't do it. People love it or they hate it.
Exactly. So you get the full scope again.
Yeah.
So I'm again like thinking about how do we do commercials? Are they compliant? How do we do the procedures for KYC? Are they fine? Do they fit? But at the same time, I'm building. So for me, that was what I say also the second line. So it's not only becoming a specialist generalist, first like in a smaller company where you're a generalist, you have a lot of topics, to a specialist focus in a bigger company, as also being a second line compliance officer. So I'm really monitoring what the business does, giving them advice. You don't do this right, think about it again.
Yeah.
To being for me first line in I want to build. I actually want to get my hands dirty and build with you the process and say, no, this is right or this is wrong. So that's what I talked to my company, because when I was leaving the Nigeria, I was like, what is my next step? I can be a head of compliance in a firm and I can really do, the compliance program, everything. But I really like to build. And if you do the compliance program, you build your team, but you don't build
the product
or the product.
Yes. It's like an it I always find when people are, because you have people who really enjoy BAU, and you have people who really enjoy project-based work and like to really get into the nitty-gritty side of it. And when you get to the point where they're like, I just want to sit back, relax, grow a team, you tend to see them there for about 3 to 6 months. And then they're kind of almost itching to get back into being somewhere hands-on and actually being part of the product build, but also the company build out, not just from let's grow a team, let's grow a business.
Exactly.
How do we grow the compliance function, but with a minimalistic team, working at a capacity of being able to do a bit of the product, understanding commercial, which is why I find now, when we're working with businesses, the need to have someone who's business savvy, but entrepreneurial and can roll their sleeves up and get it done is becoming more and more prominent, not just in the compliance world, but in the risk world as well. It's not really, you don't see it where they just want strategic people anymore. They want people who can do the job.
Yeah, but that makes sense, right? You can do the job, but also, let's be honest, me just coming in and say, I think you did this wrong, or me coming in and say, hey guys, how are we going to handle this? What is your plan? Okay, but what if you think about it like this?
It's credibility, because they can see the knowledge that you have, rather than just say, oh, this is wrong, can you do something?
Yeah, do something. I don't know how.
Make
stand
it
on
work.
your head.
Break it.
No, they come to me and they say like, okay, well, what you want, basically it doesn't fit in my IT system. I cannot break the whole IT system. Okay, what can your IT system do that I can think about with you to come up with a better solution? And that is what makes me tick and that makes me happy. So that's why I also changed directions. And being a board member, for me, it was also like, I want to be in the decision making, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't just want to sit back and hear like, okay, this is our decision, just do it. I did that. I was part of that in the past, but now I'm like, no. I want to say up front, don't do that, because if you do this and this, it might be smarter, or let's discuss.
Yeah, let's look at alternative ways of doing it, rather than just getting told, you're doing this, going
Yeah,
find
or
out.
like finding it out afterwards and having to solve it because you're the head of compliance. So you're like, yeah, guys, it's a risk for a company. Now we have to solve it.
Yeah.
I prefer to have it up front, solving it together. So yeah.
It's having the best of both worlds as well, because you get to be a part of the decision making, you get to be a part of the milestones for the business, not just for compliance, but the business as a whole. And then you get to subjectively change it internally to fit that kind of growth story. With Finst at the moment, I mean, as I said to you earlier, you see so much about them in Silken Canals for where you're looking to go, all of the investment rounds that you've just been through. Where are you looking to kind of take the business from there?
Well, we want to expand, of course. One of my key objectives is going to be Mika, of course.
Oh.
So one of the things I'm happy, right? Because I come from a field where we were very regulated. So MiFID II was my
with investment as well.
Yeah, it was my book. It was like my Bible. I kept on reading it. And now Mika is quite similar to MiFID II. So a lot of topics come back. But I think it's very nice to think about upfront, how are you going to structure a business so that it already fits the regulation and that it actually works for your clients.
How long do you have to put it into the business? Is it a year from when it gets released?
I think it's 18 months.
18 months.
Like 2 years. But a lot of the topics, for example, for Mika, we already implemented.
Yeah.
At the beginning, because I was like, okay, well, Mika's going to say client asset segregation, which is obvious, like let's be honest, we don't want this whole trading against your clients to happen and that you then blow up your own book. So we already implemented that from the beginning, taking our lessons from MiFID II and from what we had, what I learned at Giro with my mentors, there. So those kind of things we're repeating. Also, like having conflicts of interest policy, it's coming. You can already do that now.
You can do it now, or you can wait for it to come
and
think,
exactly.
Oh, shoot. Like now I have to do it.
An incident policy. You can do it now. There's a lot of policy types that that are in big banks, that are only in the banking industry. So you can do it now, and you can still format it
as well.
Yeah.
And then you can just alter it almost rather than having to start from scratch. Because are you guys Finst regulated already?
We are not. We have a registration at the Dutch Central Bank.
Yeah.
So we did. Our process was nice because one of the things that that was asked a lot, also during the funding rounds, like, where did you get your processes from? Like, because there's a lot of firms that are doing this for the first time, so they have a specialist boutique firm that do their processes. We did get a party to help us just because, you want to go through the process.
Sense.
But we wrote all our own processes. Like, we know how to build know your customer onboarding because we have done it. So we wrote our own processes. I can tell you what's in there, and because I wrote it, I can tell you what we don't do, what we do. And that also makes it nicer because you think about what you want to do. Like, one of the things that is coming is like crypto transfers, right? Because it's a product we don't have, but a lot of our clients are asking for it, and we think it's a new important product. So we're really thinking, how will we want to do it in a way that makes sense, is good for our clients, but also looks ahead already, like at the travel rule, like what should we take into account that is necessary for a travel rule that we can do.
Yeah. It's like taking just transferring the skills that you've already developed from an established organisation and putting it into something. But the reason you're able to do that is because you consciously kept yourselves to the hands-on side of it, because you could have easily, and Diego, just kind of done more of the strategic, more of the guidance. But by keeping an understanding of the fundamentals of it, you were able to transfer to set up this business. But Diego is somewhere which is heavily regulated because of the nature of the beast. Moving from somewhere so heavily regulated over to Finst, which was going to apply for registration, what was the biggest differences you found?
The biggest differences I found, exactly that it's not regulated and that you have to think about how am I going to do it, what am I going to take into account, what am I not going to do it. because obviously you have to be also commercial about it. It's not like I can put the most strict rules on my team
Yeah.
because, oh yeah, we did that like under MiFID 2, you can do that now. And they're gonna say, like, listen, Maria, nobody is doing it in this industry.
Yeah.
You want me to be the only one that has like 100% rules, which are not even applicable. So it's like finding a balance. Like, for example, maybe commercial. We have a commercial running now. And we have been talking a lot about the disclaimer. Because when you're doing investment disclaimers, you always have, no, investment has a risk of loss, right? That's a big disclaimer. So technically there's no crypto rules that say something about that. I said, well guys, what do we think is our duty of care? And then we discussed that. So our commercials have that disclaimer, you know. It also has a disclaimer on how do we do the comparison with other parties when we're talking about fees.
And that's what you see loads of businesses similar doing, is understanding, okay, our objective is to do X, Y, and Z, but if we don't have users, those objectives are dead. So how do we make it more user focused to be able to actually achieve those goals? Because at the end of the day, it's the users that help grow the business, because you need people to interact with it and understand it, but also see it as something which is quite reputable to use, to then start passing on to their friends, and how safe it is, because the crypto world is by far the most greyest area for many people because they just don't know how to use it.
Yeah, so those are things that we're looking at. Like, as I said, we're focusing on topics that we know from the investment world, putting them into practice in the crypto world. Obviously the crypto world is different, but there are a lot of basic concepts that are so similar, and we have that knowledge, so we're trying to use it as good as we can. That's, for example, we also built one of our new products, crypto bundles.
Yes.
Which is a type that actually lets you buy multiple cryptos in one go, so that, because most people don't know what's the top 25, right? So we have a crypto bundle top 25 where you put it in order and you buy the top 25 coins at that moment, and you can keep it in your portfolio. So those are things that we think about, like what helps an investor and how can we help them so that they can get to know the crypto world in a more easy way for them.
Yeah, make it, how can I put this? Make it idiot proof. So everyone knows exactly what they're looking at, even from people outside of the industry.
I wouldn't go so far as make it idiot proof. I think it's more like, think what you would normally in an industry think about the retail investor. You know, there's so much investor protection. How do we bring this investor protection to the crypto world? Because people need to know what they're doing. Yeah,
but then you know what you're doing, so you would write it down as a matter of, you would understand it, but if you then relay it to someone who's completely separate to that, it's put it in it and structuring it in a way where
they would
start
understand.
to understand. Yeah, exactly. So throughout your career, what would you say is the biggest challenge you've come across from any move that you've made or industry change?
I have to say, I think one of the biggest challenges is how to working with people. Like, I love working with people, I love teamwork, but you really need to know how to deal with certain people. Everybody's different, and sometimes I get like, oh, this person thinks I'm dumb, or this person thinks this, or also with like my bosses in the past, like how do I bring across without sounding stupid what I need to bring. So it's a challenge, like how to deal with different people, I think, and for especially for compliance, you really need to have good communication skills, because you have to bring them like sometimes bad news, right? So that has been a challenge for me. Like, I remember, and also like when you're telling about product plans or project plans, what is the status? Okay, for me, bringing bad news, I find that really hard. So how do I bring it? Like, what do I need? And I remember that I had this colleague who apparently this personality trait, he didn't mind saying stuff bluntly, but very blunt. So I always thought he thought I was stupid. right? Because every time he would like talk to me in a really weird way that I was like, look, I know what I'm talking about. I don't know what your problem is. Turns out he just talks like that to everyone. It wasn't like personal to me.
Yeah.
But I had to learn that. I had to learn that there's like people that are gonna be like super blunt and super upfront, but they don't care if you're blunt to them. I can tell him like, you're stupid right now, and he wouldn't be offended. There's another person I cannot tell to,
no,
you're stupid, because they would be offended and they don't talk to you. So for me, I think that's a challenging part.
Yeah, I think that's the same with anywhere. It's how do you work with a multitude of people. And if you internationalize, so for example, if you just have a Dutch-based business full of Dutch people, there's some common denominators in there where you can kind of work around it. But if you start bringing in people from the UK, people from Germany, people from Slovakia and places like that, there's such a big mixture of culture in there to how they would do and what they would just say as cultural norms. If you say to one person, oh, you're stupid, it wouldn't affect them at all. But you say that to another person and they're going to want to run away and hide and never speak to you again, depending like if you're the head of compliance to a compliance officer, for example.
No, and like the diversity part.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? Like the gender thing also, like you can make jokes with certain men, it's fine, but with when you do it maybe with a woman, she gets really pissed.
Yeah. So that's where the diversity side comes in as well, because if we look at the industry as it is, and you can probably agree, financial services, if we look at the senior leadership teams, it's predominantly men, unless you go to a HR director, which are predominantly women, which is the one common one common norm.
Yes.
So if then you're looking at bringing females in, I mean, what do you think we could do more of to bring them in at a more junior age, to bring them up to a leadership position?
So I've thought about this, right? Like for this one, for me, it's about fear. For me, it's like one of the things I had before coming into finances. I was scared. Like I remember I had to go for this role at the Giro, and they told me investment firm, and I'm like, I'm gonna be so stupid. All these people are gonna be so smart. They know mathematics, they know economics, and I come there like a dumb girl that doesn't know anything, and they're gonna be like, she doesn't know anything. I think that fear is something we have to let go.
Yeah.
Because math, for example, I'm scared of math because I remember I did mathematical modeling. I am not good at it. I don't understand when it's x is y plus z, what happens there. But not everybody is like that. I am very good at logical thinking. When x means something and y and z also means something, maybe about regulation or maybe about, I don't know, about your investors, then I understand it and then it makes sense. Or even when it's about, with this funding round, like how much do the investors will be investing, what is going to happen, what does that mean for our money flows, etc. Then I understand it, I grasp it. So I think one of the things that we need to be able to do as women is, one, financial literacy is very important. You can just read yourself some books. There's a lot of female podcasters right now talking about financial literacy, and it really helps. And second, don't be scared. You can make errors, right? Like the difference I feel in our genders is often that we really like control, like we want to be control of the situation.
Yeah.
And men just go into the deep blindly, and they might be scared, but they don't show it.
No.
But they're scared as well. It's just they don't show it, and we're like already scared to just cross the hurdle. So just accept that it's scary.
It's almost like sitting in a comfort zone.
I don't know if it's in comfort zone. I think it's more like we overthink. I overthink. I mean, as I said,
Yeah, when you're going for an interview, you think, oh, they're going to think I'm stupid because I'm going to an investment company.
Yeah.
That's probably completely the opposite of what anyone's thinking when you go in there, because ultimately if you go in there and you don't know something, I think it's stupid if you pretend to know it.
Exactly.
But if you just say, look,
I don't know.
I haven't done it.
Well, or you can build a own strategy around it, right? Like I once went to an interview. I don't even remember the company. I do remember I came out like crying because there was this guy who did me like the interview, and I was like, I know my subject, I'm gonna go. And he just kept firing questions, you know, like those
like fire rounds, just like question, answer, question.
And I was like, I'm really bad at those. I was freaking out, and I was getting redder by the minute, and I didn't know what to do anymore. And I was like, okay, I'm never ever gonna get a job in my life anymore, because I mean, I don't know. So then I was like, wait a moment. The reason he could do that is because I lost control over myself, because I didn't know. Actually, at that moment, I had to have said to him, look, you're making me uncomfortable. I don't know what you want. Do you want a person who is good and qualified, or do you just want to make me scared and cry?
Yeah.
So what did I do in my next interview, which was the Giro? It's like, okay, you know what? I'm never going to be in this situation anymore. I'm going to be in control now. I'm going to prepare for my interview by me making questions. So like, let's just say about Finst. You come to my interview and you're like, so Finst says you're a transparent company. What does that mean? That is you asking me a question, but I know that you read my website. So I'm going to say, oh
interest.
Yeah, interest indeed. And oh, you're interested in this part, and you can talk with me and relate to me about this, which is, I find that way more important than you being able to like.
I think that's gone off the days though, because it did used to always be, you're coming for an interview, I'm going to grill you and I'm going to see if you survive.
Yeah.
Whereas now you tend to find within interviews, and we see it more often than not now, is it's a conversation of a back and forth of them wanting to find out more about you, them wanting to tell you more about the business, what they need to do. And then you being able to kind of question them around, why do you need it? Have you thought about this? And actually being able to share their own thoughts in an interview. So it's not that quick fire round and then you're out.
It's not about being quick fire round. Like even, I'm going to tell you like for juniors, for example, how I hired them. I don't care if you have a lot of knowledge. I care about your logical thinking skills. I'm going to ask you questions and I want to think, how are you going to think about it? Right? Like, okay, what do you think compliance is? I don't need you to say, you know, compliance is how we to the risk of, what is it, how we mitigate reputational legal risk for a company. I don't need that. I'm like, I need to know what you think it is. Like, how are we going to be compliant? Do you think the company, do you think it's about the board who's compliant? Do you think it's about employees? Are you going to be responsible with it? It's just about a discussion. And for example, right now with one of my employees, I wanted to create a dashboard, right? I can create the dashboard myself. I already know what questions I want because I've done it. But I've told her, let's do it together because this is the first time you're going to create. And you think about it, and then we're going to discuss. And then we're going to think about it together, what we want to put in the dashboard. And she came with some operational parts like, okay, shall we, the amount of PEPs we have, you know? I'm like, well, that's a good dashboard, but that would be more operational for you. How are we going to think about it more and strategic? Like, what would you, if you would be at a bank, what would you want to tell your board member? Like Rolf Hammers from Credit Suisse. Well, he's not there anymore.
I was going to say, I think he's gone.
But like, what would you want to tell him? Do you want to tell him how many PEPs we have? I don't think so. But you might want to tell him, how many client groups do we have? How many clients do we have in total? How many clients have a net worth of over 5 million euros? And so,
but that's you working with them as well. Like, instead of, because we find it so easy to say, look, we want to create this dashboard. This is exactly what I want on it, and this is exactly what I want it to look like. And they haven't had to think about it. So generally, what are they learning? Nothing. Whereas if you're saying, okay, well, and this is pushing them outside of their comfort zone and probably bringing that fear element back into it as well, of they don't want to come to you and have it wrong. So let's stay on the safe side and talk about this because we know it's safe and it's nice. Whereas actually, if they push themselves a little bit, and like you said, males just have no fear, but that's been shown in statistics.
Exactly.
And I think we spoke about that on a previous podcast about if you see a job description and they're right for 50% of it, women will not apply unless they're 100%, but men will if they're like 70 or something. And that is generally how it works in a business environment. But from when they come to you and they see you don't just go, why have you brought this to me? Why are you doing this? You're rubbish, and make them feel crap. And then you actually start working with them. They'll, okay, well, what about this? What about this? Have you thought about that? It kind of brings out their thinking, but they've had to initially sit there and go through their own thoughts themselves.
Exactly. And you know what I learned when you have these kind of conversations and you do these kind of things with your team members? Those are the ones that grow the best, right?
Yeah.
Like all of the people I used to do this with at the Giro, they're now like heads of compliance. They run their own teams. They know what they're thinking about. They look ahead for themselves. They know what to think about. They are logically thinking about their business, and as I say, it's 100% more important to reach out to have your logical thinking skills right, especially for the compliance and the product field, than just know all the subjects very well, but then don't think about it in a logical manner.
Yeah, don't think about how it applies to a business, but you know everything in depth and in detail, but logically how it fits in and how it benefits is where it hits the floor, really.
Yeah.
Which is a nice way of looking at it from either side, but also looking at it from a more personal perspective. You've recently just had a newborn baby. So how are you finding balancing being a chief compliance officer and a board member of a company that's just gone live, as well as having a newborn baby?
So I am very happy to be a mom. I wanted to be a mom. That has always been my goal in life. So I always had everything ready, you know, like I wanted to do my career and everything to be a mom, and now I'm there. It's a bit harder than what I thought it is. It's really rewarding. So wherever everybody says like, oh, you know, it's gonna be so hard. Yes, it's hard, but I mean, seeing him smile and everything, it really makes me so happy. However, how to do everything at the level, like as we were saying, like I want to be in a comfort zone. My comfort zone is I'm trying to focus and be really good at something, because then I feel then I'm in my comfort zone, right? Like if I don't understand, or if I need to start reading, I need to do things to feel comfortable again. It's a bit hard when you don't have the time for that. So I'm trying to learn how to make this my new comfort zone. And it's harder than I thought. Also, like, I've worked with a lot of men.
Yeah.
So I didn't hear that often of how it was for a woman. So whenever all these men were telling me, yeah, you have your kids and then you don't sleep so much, I was like, oh well, a little bit
sleep?
Sleep is fine. Yeah, no, that's not it. Like, you birth a baby, that's pretty heavy. Then you have to like improve from birthing the baby, right? So that takes you 6 weeks to recover. And then I didn't know the breastfeeding thing. I thought, well, that's like nature doing its course. That hurts as well, like in the beginning. And then with that also, you have these cycles of the 3 hours, which are like, I'm not used to cycles of 3 hours. What is that? Like, the baby gets up, you feed, you're like 1 hour in pain from the breastfeeding, because, well, for me it wasn't that easy. Then you like change the diaper, or before you change, and then it's already, the baby sleeps and it's already 1.5 hours again. It's already 3 hours again. And then everybody wants to come and visit you.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, doesn't fit. And then obviously we were going live, so for me that was important, like, because it was kind of my other baby, right? So
yeah,
I
you've
wanted
built
to
this up to
focus.
its big day.
Yeah.
And then you've also got an actual baby as well.
So that was hard, but I have to say I really love working, so that's why I don't mind. But I do have to figure out how to combine. So
Yeah.
that's
Because I feel like that's a misconception that we have as females, as it's a career or a baby. You kind of see it as a or rather than an and.
I feel like it's maybe, I always said like you can do everything. It depends. You have to make choices. It's not like you can't have a baby and career, but then you have to outsource, right?
Yeah.
Right now it's very hard. It's very hard to get daycare. So what do you do then? And also, do you want to send your baby? Like for me, I thought, oh, I'll send my baby to daycare, and when it's there like 5 months, when you see like this little thing,
You're like, no.
You're like, I can't send you to daycare until you're like 8 months at least, right? Like you can like
get to 8 months, 8 years old, you'll go to
maybe.
daycare.
So it's like this hurdle, I think, also. So I think being a mom and doing your career, it's like making choices. I realize that now. It's hard for me because I want to do everything myself. That's who I am. But well, we're thinking about it. Like we have somebody who helps us with the cleaning, and I've been talking to my husband that I would like somebody who helps us with the clothes, because I can tell you, like I have like my clothes are clean, but it's like mountains and mountains of clothes in my bedroom that are not in the closet, so I don't even know what I have
Just
anymore.
a quick dash as we go in.
Exactly. So yeah.
That's it though, isn't it? It's finding the balance, and you worked on your baby Finst all the way up to the point of it going live, and then had your own baby, and then it's the juggling act, because you're trying to find your feet with personal and professional and a collaboration of both of those, so one of them doesn't have to be ignored or feel slightly less, which is obviously where you want to keep going because you're clearly very career motivated. If you was to say something about encouraging women to get into that type of industry as well as get to that sort of level, what would your words of encouragement be?
Well, I think you can do it. I mean, you can do it. It's not whatever you set your mind to, you can do it. It's just accept that it's not going to be as great as you think you're going to do it, but that good is good enough. I think that's one of the basics. I would say, like for me, maybe I'm not like the perfect house mom, which I would like to be, as well as the perfect career woman, but maybe if I'm 50% house mom and 50% career woman for now, that's good, and it's going to get better with time. And just don't be afraid to ask help. I think one of the key things why I could be there for Finst when we went live is my parents-in-law came for three months to live with us. They come from Cuba. They were living in our house, which can be heavy. But I have to say, I'm very grateful to them. I'm very grateful to my mom. They were there. They did nights, especially the night before we went live. They did the whole night so I could be there at the live going in the morning. It also helped me recover quicker. And I've also heard from, that there's a lot of women who want to do it themselves at the beginning.
Yeah.
Just ask help. People are willing to help you, and it will make it easier for you to transition because it's heavy.
I think it's just embedded in us, even in work. So many people are so reluctant to ask for help or ask a question because they'll think it'll make it look stupid. But one thing that I always promote is no question is a stupid question. You could ask me questions 10 times a day, or well, more than 10 times a day, but you're asking a question to get the knowledge because you want to understand it and you want to be able to do it moving forward. Whereas if you're just kind of sat there at a roadblock, you're just stopping yourself from progressing just because you're unconfident to ask a certain question, whereas you're asking it to gain knowledge. So in theory, I would actually say that's pretty smart because you're then looking at...
Yeah, I think I always start with people like, I might ask you a dumb question now, but that's how I often start with questions. But yeah, I think you have to question all the time. And I think indeed there's no dumb, no stupid question. The only thing with questions I do have is like, it needs to be sincere. Like, right, there are some people that just keep on repeating the same question because they never actually listen to your answer the first time.
Ask once, ask twice, don't ask a third if it's like the same question.
If it's because you really didn't grasp it, you can ask to me 50 times, I don't mind. I can see in your eyes when it's like you didn't understand you didn't understand the answer. That's fine. You can, there's nothing to do about it. We just I'll have to explain better, which also teaches me.
Explaining it in different ways.
Yeah.
As you say, to different people, communication. And
Exactly. So that's on me. But when I know that you grasp it, and it's just you being lazy, and it's just you trying to like, you know, be the easy way around, then at one point I'm gonna be like, look, this is not it, right?
Yeah.
You have to do some work for yourself, because else I might as well do it myself.
No, that's a really fair comment, and I think it's something which is pretty embedded into everyone now moving forwards. And I think people are becoming more adaptable to just asking, like just saying, "Oh, quick question."
Exactly, but why I'm saying is that because for me, I really learned to know my juniors with this. You have the juniors that ask really good questions, or ask, and then they grasp it and they move forward and they do great stuff by themselves. And you have the juniors that keep on repeating the same question because they were too lazy to actually try to grasp it, and then they don't develop as well. So that's also why I'm saying, like, for you, that's like, for me, it's a red flag kind of thing. Like, why should we work on this right now so that you can continue developing, or is this something that maybe you don't like as much, so it doesn't fit you? So that's also why I like questions.
And I would, from your hiring perspective, from Finst or from Diego, how have you seen diversity from the compliance space when hiring?
So both Jiro and Finst, we always looked at who is the best candidate. So not so much a gender. However, as I said, applications were like 99 male and maybe 1% female. So where we did hire in the past female hires as well, just for diversity reasons, but they had to be good, right? I'm not gonna say I prefer to hire female just because she's female.
No.
And then she doesn't work properly. At Finst, well, we're a small team. But we already have a couple of women, of course. So it's me, my employee Rita. She's from Portugal. I'm very happy with her. She's doing very great. So she's junior. She grows really fast. She picks up everything. She did everything while I was on maternity leave, right? So
wow,
very impressive, because we didn't go live, and she was like building the reports. And then I was giving her tips, and she does a lot. So I'm very impressed. And then we have Dirty, who is our head of design. So she designs all our great products, and she makes you can see our website and everything. So it's amazing. And I think what we have is like, it's not so much about being a woman or being a man. It's just about your attitude. And what you want to do, and how you want to work in a team.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's always important to diversify, because it's really great to see people like yourselves in senior positions and leading the way in those types of companies. But then you want to hire on merit, not on gender.
Yes, unless, and that's what I say, let's say you have a board position, right? You have 5 people, 3 of them are male and 2 are female, and they're both equally good. They're all equally good. Then I would think like, okay, maybe the diversity card is important here, because that could be like the one added bonus. But I wouldn't say like, okay, she's fully disqualified, but she's a female, so let's hire her.
No, because then it just slows the business down sometimes. But then if you hire, a male, and just out of trying to balance a female-led organisation to a male, and he's not as good, and kind of draws the business back. It's a double-sided coin. I always like to say.
But of course, with what I said, like if it's 3 men and 2 women, they're equally good. You do have to look also at the soft skills, right? Because if you hire normally men because they're direct and quick and whatever, and the women don't have it, look beyond that, because it also might be they still need to feel comfortable, or they're like what you say, they're like still don't think they meet the 100%. But they are equally good. So we do have to look at it a bit different, in a different perspective, in a different way.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think even with the companies that we're working with at the moment, they've pushed diversity so much more, and you're seeing more and more female coming into the governance type of space. I think there's still quite a lot to do in the IT side of it, because that has always been predominantly male. But from a governance related area, you're seeing more and more people moving into it, from graduates actually, all the way passing through up to people of C-suite level. So just to kind of wrap this up and round it off, is there anything else that you would like to add at all?
Well, mostly for the diversity perspective, I think women are awesome. So all people are awesome. I don't have a preference, but me coming from, you asked me like, why do I do the things I do? Why do I want to grow? My mom, love her, she's super awesome. She always taught me you have to like be able to take care of yourself. And my dad is awesome, so she has never really been like that my dad wasn't there or didn't take care of us, but she's like, you always have to be able to take care of yourself. And she has a lot of friends who I saw that their husband left them, and then they were in bad financial situations and those kind of stuff. So for me, I have always been like, I have to take care of me and my family. And I think that if that's your basis, and if you think, okay, how can I do it that I in my unit is good, that will bring you far.
I think that's actually a very inspiring way to look at it, and also a logical way to look at it as well, because it's a really fair comment, and it's something which I think people are striving more to do now, because if you say if something happens down the line and you've kind of lent on one side almost, you find yourself having to pick it up from the beginning.
Yeah, so for me it was like one of the key things for a lot of women are still we're dependent on our partner. Being dependent on your partner is good if you make good rules around it, if you talk about it, but never just let them handle the finances and don't be involved at all.
Yeah.
And then once you divorce, you suddenly have a debt.
Yeah, because you don't understand it, and then everything starts coming out the woodwork, because you have to start going through the nitty-gritty side.
So I'm not like, I don't have a problem about women being housewives. I think everybody makes their own decisions, but please do not just be 100% dependent on your spouse without knowing yourself, your finances, your situation around it, what would happen suppose this would end.
Yeah, just keeping an eye on everything without turning the blinkers on.
Yeah.
A blind eye.
Exactly.
Well, look, it's been amazing having you as part of this podcast. I think it's really interesting to see your background, what interests you, how you're balancing life at the moment, which is just crazy. How you're going to continue to, but also kind of what keeps you going. And I think it's very inspiring to hopefully junior level people to see this is what you can get from doing X, Y, and Z, and this is to mums as well, as how you can have both and how you can balance both sides of the coin.
We'll do our best, right?
Well, thank you for joining.
Thank you so much.